Before I begin today, I wanted to start out by saying just how lucky I felt to visit the Hagar Qim Temples. Particularly lucky because we were literally the first people to arrive, so we got maybe about half an hour to totally explore the temples alone. And that's why this exploration of the temples is gonna be a little bit of a different focus than many people's tours of these temples, perhaps. Because perhaps sometimes when you visit these sacred places, what is more important is not always the facts of the place and what they were used for, but the feeling you get when you visit. And in this video, I wanted to try to show you what kind of feeling I experienced while I was there, particularly the energy surrounding the stones, which quite frankly, the camera does not do their gigantic and megalithic size any justice. I am going to tell you a few facts along the way, but really there are moments throughout this video where I would like you to try and experience, albeit through this lens, the feeling and the energy of these stones that are over 5,000 years old. Let's begin. So behind me are temples that are older than the Pyramids of Giza. They're actually also older than Stonehenge. Hagar Qim, or worshipping stones, built in 3600 BC, makes them over 5,000 years old, and they are megalithic temples built from limestone. In 2009, they built this protective tent over to protect the limestone from any more weathering. There is evidence inside of possible fertility symbols and also sacrifices. Sir Themistocles Zammit led the first excavation. He is of course a Maltese archaeologist, which is where these temples are based, and they are now a UNESCO World Heritage Site. Whenever I am travelling and I visit sites like this, I have a little protocol that I like to live by, and that is I like to try and get there really early in the morning to try and experience the place with as few people as possible. But then I like to try and take in the atmosphere of the place without sort of being influenced by any of the information. Now obviously I did a little bit of research for this video, however I didn't want to be overcome with too much information that almost affected my experience of the place first. My partner and I walked around the two sites here, which are Hagar Qim and Manadra, and experienced the atmosphere first before coming back to actually walk around and read the information. Now I will tell you some of the information, but what I think might be more useful for anybody wanting to visit Hagar Qim when they visit Malta is to tell you some of the things that people don't tell you. They might tell you about the site, they might tell you about the age, but what they don't tell you are perhaps some useful tips, such as a little bit down the road there is the tourist centre that has a mini museum with some of the things from the site. They have some of the columns with carvings in, they have a gift shop, they have toilets. It is only €10 for access to both sites, and you can even buy a ticket that is for all the temples on Malta, because there are 3 major sites, one on Gozo and also one called the Taxian Temples, which are closer to Valletta. Now they're all pretty close because Malta is only small. You can easily get an Uber across the island for only €20. So I would say if you don't want to experience it with a coach load of people, get the Uber early in the morning, because the coach load of people is obviously going to take another 30 people to the site with you, and they're going to charge you about €70 to do what we did for only €20 each, because it was €20 in the taxi and €10 in, and obviously we were splitting it. So much cheaper and a much nicer experience. It truly allowed us to experience the temples in a sacred way. Another thing that I thought might be useful to know for anybody deciding which temple to visit in Malta if you've only got a little bit of time. Obviously, if you've got enough time, visit them all. There's 3 major sites, although to be honest, Malta is scattered with megalithic and Neolithic sites, but there are 3 major ones. The 3 major ones which I mentioned are the temples on Gozo, and then this site that I'm at, and also the Taxian Temples. Of all of them, arguably, the site that I am at is perhaps the best well preserved. The stones are just a lot better preserved, which is why they've built the tent to preserve them even more, or the shelter. Really, you're getting really good value for money because there's actually 2 sites in one. So Hagar Qim is the first temple that you've seen me enter today, and Menadra is literally just 400 meters down a pathway that they are still currently working on to improve for tourists, because before it was just a really stony, difficult path to walk on, so they are trying to improve things for tourists. At the moment, when we visited, it is scaffolding and quite slippery scaffold boards, so I would let anybody know that, because I think they're going to probably be working on it for the next year, but in about a year's time it will hopefully be complete, and then it will have proper stone pathways between Hagar Qim and Menadra, which is a good 400 metre walk down to it that you're about to see now. So I don't know whether you actually caught that, but as I was walking around, what one of the signs actually said was that these main megalithic stones sticking up were once the only thing sticking out of the ground, which is what made people think there may be a site there. The original discoverer was actually J.D. Vance, and at one time the actual structure will have been 3 times larger than this, but obviously over the years some of the stones have fallen and even degraded with the weather, which is why they now have this tent to protect it. We're now going to head over to the second site, which is just nearby, called Menadra. They've even got little steps down there as well into a little separate room. It was around this time that lots of other people started to arrive. In the great scheme of things, I would say it's still not a very busy tourist destination, simply because Malta is not a very hectic tourist destination. But there began to be a few people around than were there in the beginning when we first arrived. Obviously, everybody has a right to visit a tourist destination, but we decided that we had had the best of the day and decided to make our way back up to the exit. So I hope you've enjoyed the tour today of Menadra and the Hagar Qim Temples here in Malta, considered one of the oldest temples in the world, even older than the Pyramids of Giza and Stonehenge. If you'd like to know more about Malta, check out some of our other Malta videos or even some of our general travel videos. Bye! Mm-hmm.